Element 3.8, Emergency Procedures and First Aid. The need for emergency procedure. Despite all the controls that can be introduced into an organization, things can still go wrong. Accidents and incidents do happen. When they do, it is critical that the organization has emergency procedures that can be brought into effect without delay. Otherwise, there may be a poor or inappropriate emergency response that make things worse rather than better. An organization has to develop procedure to deal with foreseeable incidents. Such incident might include fire, bomb threat, spillage of hazardous chemical, release of toxic gases, outbreak of diseases, severe weather or flooding, multiple casualty accident, and terrorist or security incident. The foreseeable incident will vary depending on many factors such as the type of organization and its location. Emergency procedure arrangements. Having identified the foreseeable incident, the organization should make internal arrangements to deal with each of them. These arrangements should include foreseeable emergencies. Foreseeable emergencies. An outline of the foreseeable emergencies that might occur along with the circumstances in which they might occur and their foreseeable outcome. This will identify what the emergency are and why procedure need to be followed. Workers need to know how the relevant alarms are raised for different types of emergency and any escalation procedure that might apply. For example, manual call point might be used to raise the alarm in the event of fire, but radio or telephone notification to a control center might be used in the event of a security incident. In the event of a fire, for example, normal practice is for workers to exit the building using the signed escape routes and assemble at a designated place. In the event of a bomb threat, the procedure is often the exact opposite, to go to a room inside the building away from windows and external walls. If there is a chemical spill, for example, absorbent granules or boom might be used to contain the spill, and PPE used to prevent harm to those involved in the containment operation. In the event of a release of toxic gas, respiratory protective equipment may be needed. In a fire situation, there is likely to be a need for fire wardens or marshals who walk through the building to check that everyone is aware of the fire evacuation. A fire team may also be required, whose job will be to check the area where the fire is suspected to be. It is foreseeable that some emergencies will attract media attention. Procedures for handling the media should be developed and nominated staff trained in media handling techniques. While internal emergency arrangements must be made by the organization to deal with foreseeable incidents, these responsibilities normally also involve contacting external emergency services for help. There should therefore be appropriate arrangements in place. For example, communication equipment, for example, landline and mobile phone, satellite phone, or radios. The more remote the location, the more difficult communication becomes. Contact details, for example, national and local emergency services numbers. This may involve international medical evacuation as well. Responsible individual with the necessary information and knowledge nominated to make the call. In many instances, the emergency services can provide a more effective response if they are given critical information quickly. Training and testing. Workers will only know what to do when these various emergencies occur if they have been provided with the information and training. Any nominated individual will require additional training in their roles in the emergency and in the safe handling of any equipment, for example PPE, that they might have to use. Member of the public may require information on emergency procedure, which might be provided in the form of notices or by means of public address system announcement. Emergency procedures should be practiced to ensure that people are familiar with the action they might be expected to. In this way, people's responses become automatic. For example, fire evacuation drills should be conducted routinely in our workplaces, and multiple casualty accident exercises should be practiced if they are foreseeable event. First aid requirements. An employer has a duty to provide appropriate first aid services for their employee. This is to allow an immediate emergency medical response to foreseeable injuries that might occur in the workplace. Three elements must be provided in first aid requirement: facilities, equipment, personnel. Facilities: an appropriate location where first aid treatment can be given. Equipment: suitably stocked first aid kits and other equipment as necessary. And the last, personnel: staff with appropriate training to deliver first aid treatment. The employer must notify staff of these first aid arrangements and in particular the identity of trained first aid personnel. Specific first aid at work requirements may differ between countries as they are often dictated by local legislation. First aid facilities. Suitable facilities should be provided where first aid treatment can be given. As a minimum, this might consist of a room that is used for other purposes but can be quickly converted into a treatment area in a larger workplace. A dedicated treatment room should be provided. This room should be centrally located in an area that can be accessed by the emergency services, should be clean and adequately heated, ventilated, and lit. It should provide with hand wash facilities and a chair and a clinical waste bin. Moving on to first aid equipment, as a minimum, one fully stocked first aid kit box might be provided for a small and low risk workplace. The UK HSE provides suggestions on what should be included in a first aid kit. For example, large triangular bandages, preferably sterile plasters, disposable gloves, safety pins, sterile eye pads, large and medium size unmedicated wound dressings. In larger workplaces, multiple first aid kits should be positioned at various locations throughout the workplace, as well as eye wash stations, emergency showers, blankets, splints, resuscitation equipment, stretchers, wheelchairs, other equipment as required. We're going to discuss first role of first aider. The essential role of first aider is to keep the injured casualty alive until professional medical assistance can take over. This is sometimes referred to as 3 P's: preserve life, prevent deterioration, promote recovery. First aider also provides simple treatment for minor injuries that do not require professional treatment. Types of first aid personnel. Minimum provision would be a person available to take charge of the first aid arrangement, which means looking after the first aid equipment and facilities and calling the emergency services when required. Such appointed persons should be available at all times while people are at work. Appointed persons are not necessary where there are adequate number of first aiders. Appointed persons do not need to be trained as first aider, but it will be of benefit if they were trained to be emergency first aid at work level. The number of appointed person and of emergency first aid will depend upon first aid needs assessment. Where the need assessment show there is a high level of risk, the first aider trained to the first aid at work standards should be appointed in numbers appropriate to the risk and number of workers. Emergency first aid at work and first aid at work personnel must have suitable training and hold a valid certificate of competence. Moving forward towards the selecting staff to be first aider, there are a number of factors that should be taken in account when selecting person to fulfill the role of a first aider at work. These include being reliable, having a gentle disposition and good communication skills, awareness of their own limitation and limitations of the training, having the aptitude and ability to absorb new knowledge and learn new skills, having the ability to cope with stressful situation and accept responsibility, physically fit enough to deal with the demanding nature of some aspects of first aid, consideration of the need of first aider, considering gender, ethnicity, and religious convictions. The person's normal duties should be such that they can leave their work immediately at any time to attend an emergency. First aid coverage. An employer should undertake a first aid needs assessment in order to determine what first aid facilities, equipment, and trained personnel is to provide. There should be adequate first aid cover on all shift work in the workplace, with weekend, morning, afternoon, and night shift work patterns all adequately provided for. There are some factors which need to be considered when deciding first aid provision and number of first aiders. The general risk level of the workplace, hazards present in the workplace, accidental history of the workplace, specific procedures required, for example, toxic material that have specific antidotes or first aid protocols, presence of vulnerable persons which are young people, old people, expectant mothers, number of workers in the workplace, work pattern and shift system of workers, geographic location of the workplace, and Indian spread of the workplace. The geographic location is an important issue to consider when determining first aid provision. Workplaces within easy reach of the emergency services can perhaps provide minimal cover, but workplaces in remote location which the emergency services may take hours to reach must have adequate facilities and skilled personnel available.